Over the past 30 years of teaching childbirth classes, I've observed an unsettling trend. Despite numerous advances in healthcare, the fear of childbirth is increasing rather than diminishing. Studies show that labors are often longer now than in the past, sometimes by over 2 hours. So, why is this happening? Hi, I'm Debra Pascali-Bonaro, founder and director of Orgasmic Birth and host of the Orgasmic Birth podcast. Today, I'm diving deep into a topic that's both personal and universal. In an article by Alexandra Sifferlin titled Why Women Who Fear Childbirth Spend More Time in Labor, she says that according to the study's authors, between 5 to 20% of pregnant women fear giving birth. And this fear can have significant consequences, such as longer labors, a higher likelihood of emergency C-sections, and increased use of instruments like forceps and vacuum during delivery. The study author, Samantha Salvesen Adams from the University of Oslo, suggests that fear of childbirth is becoming an increasingly important issue in obstetric care. She notes that longer labor durations among fearful women might be due to psychological factors, and high levels of stress hormone can weaken the uterine contractions, prolonging labor. Additionally, fear can hinder clear communication between the mother, the birthing person, and the healthcare team, and that can delay important discussions and potentially aspects of care. So there are many reasons why someone might develop a fear of childbirth, and it can stem from hearing traumatic birth stories from friends or family. And that's why I say when you're pregnant, please, if someone comes up to you and they've had a challenging traumatic birth, I always say to let them know that you'd love to hear it later, maybe after the baby comes, but while you're pregnant, it's important to really take in positive stories. Or if you want to listen to stories that are more challenging, always make sure you ask, what would you do today with what you know to have changed that to be something that you would feel more positive about? But many cultures around the world have really had practices that protected pregnant women so that they were only surrounded with positive beliefs and stories. So I do encourage you. That's why we're always featuring positive birth stories, because we want to inspire you and make sure that you're prepared for the challenges. We're not saying labor isn't hard, and sometimes it can be painful, but that with the right practice, with techniques, you can transform pain to power with pleasure. And there are so many ways to work through labor. So really make sure you're taking time to listen to positive stories. We also know that for some people, they've had personal experiences of traumatic births or maybe birth trauma. And this could be in a prior pregnancy and birth that they had, but sometimes it even goes back to how we were born. So taking time to understand your own coming into the world. What was that like? What were some of the family stories that you've heard? Maybe even your grandparents. When you're pregnant, it's a wonderful time to take in the positive things that you can from the stories of your family, and then really work to heal and change some of the things that might be passed down that are not serving people in birth. The other thing to consider is our healthcare system has historically prioritized physical safety over emotional well-being. And both are really crucial, not just to survive, but to thrive during childbirth. And it's really only been the last 10 or 15 years we're hearing a lot more focus on your well-being in labor. So what can you do to transform fear into confidence? A book that I'm currently listening to on tape right now, and I really hope I can join her ask her to join us on the podcast is Dr. Rachel Reed, a midwife, and her book, Reclaiming Childbirth as a Rite of Passage, so beautifully describes the whole history, or her story, as she calls it, of birth, to understand how did we get from where birth was something that happened in the community to a medical model in the hospital. What have we lost? But she also beautifully describes the transition into active labor as a period of separation. She talks about this as a time when a woman needs to feel safe enough to embark on the inward journey of childbirth, moving into a liminal state between worlds. I always see this as a doula. When people no longer want to talk, when they like darkened rooms, tranquil music or sounds, really allowing them to go within. The separation allows for a deeper connection with your body and your baby. But when people are held back with fear, they're not able to separate from the conscious world and allow the hormones of childbirth to take you to labor land. Instead, that adrenaline and cortisol block the release of oxytocin, the hormone of labor, and they definitely, when you're stressed, when you're afraid, the body responds by putting you into a highly alert and conscious state. So make sure you listen to our podcast episode number 4. Dr. Sarah Buckley did such a beautiful job of taking you through the hormones of childbirth and breastfeeding. So when you think of that need to separate, where that need to go into liminal states, to really separate from the conscious world and take that inward journey into labor land, it involves creating an environment of privacy, safety, feeling unobserved, and having the support you need. So I put together some key points for you of ways that you can move from fear to confidence. So my first one is education, right? Educate yourself. Knowledge is power. Understand the childbirth process. Make sure you go to classes or read good books or are following podcasts like ours that take you through the stages and phases. But not only that, really know about, and I guided you through in some of my episodes, finding out what your provider's birth practice is like. What are the majority of their birth like? Do you have the ability to eat and drink and move in labor? What are all your options? And I did one whole podcast and I talked about your voice and choice and using an acronym called BRAINS, knowing the benefits, the risks, the alternatives, what your intuition says, that you always have the right to either consent or refuse, to say no, that N for no or not now, and that S, that whatever you agree to do to your body and your baby, that you do it safely and with those hormones flowing. So sometimes if something happens that blocks the flow of hormones, you have tools to get your own hormones flowing. So that educate yourself, really know every option, and really explore what if birth for your baby's safety or your well-being takes you down a different path. How can you safely give birth with confidence in any situation? My number 2 is build a support network. Surround yourself with supportive friends, family, and a doula, right? A doula is really there to help you build your confidence, but to address your fears as well. Fear is normal. We don't know what labor will ask of us, right? So I remember having some fear not only before labor, but even in moments of labor, wondering, oh my goodness, how much harder is this going to get? But being able to look up into the eyes of a doula or a caregiver, someone who really knows birth and knows you and can give you the confidence to keep going. So choose a midwife or a doctor that you feel good and confident with, that you can ask any question and know that they will listen and that their words will add to your confidence. Sadly, too often today, I see caregivers not even realizing how their words add to fear. And after a visit, you want to ask yourself, is my provider, is my team adding to my confidence, Or did you just walk away with more fear? Trust those feelings. Make sure you discuss this with them. Let them know that their words just made you more anxious or more fearful. Because if this happens in labor, you just can't push fear aside. I often say fear hijacks your birth. As you heard in studies, making labor longer and more complicated. So taking time to address your feelings with your team is important. That leads me to my next point. Number 3 is communicate your wishes. Make sure your healthcare team understands and respects your birth preferences. Clear communication is vital to ensure your needs and preferences are met. And something midwife Robin Lim, dear friend of mine, we teach Eat, Pray, Doula together each year in Bali, often talks about is too often people are given scare rather than care. So when you're communicating your wishes, you want to be sure you're receiving care, not scare. Number 4 is practice relaxation techniques. Techniques such as deep breathing, meditation, visualization, attending prenatal yoga classes, anything that helps you manage stress and promotes a sense of calm during pregnancy are tools then you can come back to in labor. Number 5, trust your body. Remember that your body was designed for childbirth. The body that grows the baby can birth the baby. So finding that trust in your ability will help you to feel more confident and less fearful. I've definitely had clients said to me that when they felt this crazy, huge power in labor, at first they wanted to resist it. It was like scary, what's happening to my body? But when they realize it's their power and their body and their baby, and instead of being afraid of it, embrace it and ride the waves rather than resist them, it totally changed the process of labor. So my next one, 6, is think about ways to move with your labor. So dancing, singing, meditations, things that take you away from your thinking mind, but allow your body to move and focus inward. Think about just getting lost in dance, lost in movement, lost in singing or a meditation. It's important to separate, as Rachel Reed calls it, to get into active labor by shutting down your thinking mind. So really think about how are you going to find ways that you can move through labor, but in an instinctual, intuitive way in this liminal space. So labor is designed to shut down your thinking mind and to bring you into that hindbrain, that intuitive space. That's where you are when you're making love, right? Think about if you're in the middle of making love and someone asks you a question and you have to answer 3 things, how that just shuts down that loving feeling. So how do you access that safe and intimate and intuitive space? That's where you're called to separate and be in liminal land. Number 7, love through labor. It's hard to stay in fear when you're being loved on and feeling love. Love heals, and love will guide you to connect with your baby, to trust your body, and you two together know how to give birth. So really pause and say, how am I going to take that time to love myself, to pause and send words of love to your baby? Partners, how are you going to bring your love and love through labor? That's your main job. And again, midwife Robin Liv often says, if you want to change the environment in the room to bring more oxytocin and help labor go easier and quicker, tell everyone in the room you love them. So think about bringing that love in. 8 is ride the waves and transform pain to power with pleasure. Moments of pleasure, and really make that list. I hope you're living with 3 to 5 pleasures a day and you have a huge list of pleasures that you're going to bring in labor. Some are during a surge and some are in between. Gentle caresses, touch, massage. Think of when you go get a relaxing massage, releasing your mind to be fully present present, to enjoy each sensation. And have you ever been getting a nice touch or rub or massage, and all of a sudden your mind gets involved and you think about what you have to do later or what you forgot to do, and you miss the pleasure of that touch? So labor really requires relinquishing all thoughts, all fears, being fully present with confidence and love. So, as Rachel Reed says in her book, it's important to reclaim childbirth. It's a personal and transformative experience. Embrace the journey, recognize it as a powerful rite of passage. So, as I wrap up today, I want to leave you with this thought that fear is a natural response, but it doesn't have to control your birth experience. With the right preparation, support, and mindset, you can transform that fear into confidence and have a powerful, empowering, positive birth. Thank you for joining me today on the Orgasmic Birth Podcast. If you found this episode helpful, please share it with others who will benefit. And remember, your mind is powerful in creating your birth experience. Birth is not just a physical event. It's one that your mind impacts what your body feels. So until next time, I hope you embrace the journey of childbirth with confidence and enjoy some pleasures today. I hope to see you next time, or have you join me on the Orgasmic Birth Podcast.